So following that, we had Great Okan defeating Shota Umino in 9 minutes and 38 seconds. And all throughout the Road to Tour, Great Okan was terrorizing Umino, cutting up the merge, tripping up the signs, and trying to get the true Umino to come out here.
So I will say this. I think that Great Okan has looked great since retiring the KOPW belt. I've never been a huge fan of his, but I've liked his work as of recent. I really have. This was one of the least best worked matches on the card. I would say probably slightly better than Sonata Taichi, but it wasn't particularly great. But I do think, like, as far as like advancing the programs for like both men, I think like it really did its job. Obviously, the post-match angle is what people walked away talking about the most. Shota, I him going full Britney Spears with the Clippers was very it was something. I think he realized, like, I don't even think that people dislike him. It's just more so that people had grown apathetic. And so, like, when you want to make people feel something, you have to do something drastic. And so this was certainly it. And like, it certainly made me feel. I'm just interested to see where we go from here, because obviously he acknowledges, and now you can see the company acknowledges, that he needs to be rebuilt. Him in his current form just couldn't go on and be successful in any shape or form, especially after that dreadful Wrestle Kingdom main event. I just don't know how they rebuild him. Do you do it in front of everybody? Do you some people say send him on a second excursion, but I don't think the answer to fix somebody who has always struggled with a lack of identity is to send them to Mexico so they can get somebody else's identity. I just don't think that that's the great idea either. And I don't think that sending him to AEW with Mox is the great idea either. I think he's just in a very weird position of just, it's going to take a lot of work to rehab him, but because all of his peers have gotten so good and they have delivered on the investment that was placed into them, is it worth it at this point? And I think that just remains to be seen. Obviously, he's in New Japan Cup. I just genuinely don't know. I think he's a big question mark right now. But I think that Great Okan came out of that looking like a killer. He looked, and he, took it upon himself. I saw his backstage comments. He said, "Yeah, don't ever say the word ace again. The only ace." He said, I don't know what to ever hear you say the word ace come out of your mouth ever again. The only ace is Hiroshi Tanahashi, and if I hear you say it again, I'm gonna do you even worse. And I gotta respect it. He said, Great Okan standing on big business. I gotta respect
it.
We watched Okan for so many years stand in the corner of Tanahashi as a young lion and bang on the mat and swing the towel around and cry out for his hero. So when he heard that man, call himself Ace, he was like Michael Jordan. He was like, I took that personally. You know what I'm saying?
He said, who? And I think also too, I enjoyed like seeing his progression, like at least over the past year. I think New Beginning Osaka, the New Beginning tour last year, he looked like a geek, like, in front of like Okada holding up the KOPW title, and like, nobody took him seriously. Yeah. In contrast to this tour, like he's really standing tall. Like, he's really, he's a weird guy. Like, he's not the traditional wrestler. Like, he's not the traditional wrestler. He does a lot of weird stuff sometimes, and like, he's different. But I think he's found a way. He's starting to make that really work for him, and he can still feel imposing. And I think that he's starting to finally feel imposing. And you know what? I could be wrong. Maybe it's not him being imposing. Maybe Shota just really looks that weak. But I think that, he is honestly benefited off of Shota's downfall tremendously.
Yeah. I heard that last year they orchestrated that thing with the train where he saved that little girl. That was never real. That was all inside job. No, but the match was fine. I don't mechanically, is there anything negative to speak about it? Not really, but it also didn't light my world on fire. It was fine, but it was an interesting kind of crossroads match. And, I heard the talking point that so many people had. They're like, this man Shota Umino came out, no response. And then, he did the angle and they didn't get the reactions that they were expecting to, quote unquote. But I am wondering if that's really the case, because where were they? They were in Osaka. Where's the first place that really started to boo this guy and reject him on a public scale? Was Osaka, the Edion Arena. And I'm like, did they really not know that this was potentially the outcome, and maybe they were banking on it? And I don't know. I don't know if the creative, if Kakuch and all them, are playing chess while we're all thinking in checkers. I really don't know that. But I also have to wonder, like, did they not think that could be a potential, response? To speak to what you mentioned, Lyric, I think a lot of people, they look at history and they think about like Nakamura and his second excursion and what that did for him. Then they look at Naito and the same thing, and they're like, yeah, maybe it'll work for this guy. He seems to be failing. And I'm like, yeah, but the problem is he's not Nakamura and he's not Naito. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. I don't know if you send him to the magical world of CMLL, if it's going to turn things around the way that you all think that it hopefully might. Also, with him shaving his head, that is such a stark visual of storytelling that you can't just disappear the man after that. You have to have an immediate follow-up. But last year they did the same thing with Yuya Uemura, and they didn't have a good creative direction for him in the immediate sense. I hope they have something better creatively planned for Shota Umino, but something, it was like going Hart. Enough is enough. It's time for a change. It wasn't working out. Something needed to happen. And, we're going to find out, is this guy, in the same line of the Nakamuras and the Naitos, a guy that can reshape himself and reinvent himself, or is he Eric Watts?
Yeah, that's gonna be
is he Nepo baby that just doesn't fucking have it, and has ruined his connection with the crowd, and it's a done deal, and he's getting bypassed by everybody else. 1, 2, 3, boom, boom, boom. That's what you're seeing happen. You're seeing a whole generation of guys lap him.
And even like the class of young lions that came after him or lapping him, it's just, you're at a point to when you think about, out of all of them, we were all the most invested in Shota. He was the one who, in his young lion days, he's immediately aligned with the biggest foreigner coming into the company at that time, in John Moxley.
Mm-hmm.
Even on his excursion, he's sent to Rev Pro. He's learning under Will Ospreay. His father's red shoes. When nobody else from his generation is getting those big matches, because Okada's not wrestling young guys, Naito's not wrestling young guys. None of these people are, but who's getting these big matches in placement? Shota was getting those big match opportunities with Ospreay. He was given more than just about everybody else of his generation, even in the midst of getting booed, by the crowds and getting rejected. He still got a Wrestle Kingdom main event. And, he still squandered all of that goodwill. And I think it's just currently at this point of, I'll be honest, I don't think that they have too much creatively planned. I highly doubt it. But I think that after a certain point, like, I think it's on him. And I also think, like, with the second excursion thing, think about when all those things happened, the world was nowhere near as connected as it is now, especially from like a wrestling standpoint and a streaming standpoint and a social media standpoint. Mm-hmm. There used to be a time, not that you can kind of like hide a guy, but that there used to be a time where you can he could go away and really focus on what he's doing, and like he doesn't have to deal with that type of scrutiny. There's no way that he can go in the wrestling world where people won't be watching and scrutinizing.
Oh, you're wrong, Lyric. I'm sorry to say it. You're wrong. Here's why. No one fucking watches CMLL. All right. Westerners and Japanese people do not watch Lucha Libre. This is bullshit. They should be watching it, but they don't. Like, if he goes and he works Arena Mexico, he will be hidden. Aside from a gif or two, he will be totally hidden behind a paywall. No one's seeing that shit.
See, I think that to a certain extent, but I will say Shota Umino has haters to the point to where people will clip his matches and literally all people will know. No, that's what I'm just saying. Let's just be real. All people will know from his CMLL run is literally the worst parts. Like the literally worst parts will be clipped and made viral on the internet, just like that picture of him crying. And then that is what will end up going viral.
Yeah,
that's what happened to Watto. Remember, anytime Watto botched, they were like, "Oh shit, I don't know if it's gonna work out for the master."
Literally, like, let's just be real. Like, that's how petty New Japan fans are. Like, because they're going to, and at this point, so many of them have been turned off by this guy to where, you know, it doesn't matter where he goes. And honestly, AEW is like the worst place for him to go right now, because I think the only thing that could possibly make the Death Riders worse is Shota Umino. I think that might be the only thing that could make the Death Riders angle worse is Shota Umino.
We don't need a second Wheeler Utah.
No, I said also too, I said the only thing that could possibly be interesting about him potentially like spending some time at AEW is like him working with Shibata. Like, I think like, okay, like I think that could be some, especially Musketeer to Musketeers. And I think like, you know, with Shibata, you know, former leader of the dojo, I think like, you know, there could be something interesting there, but honestly, AEW is too much of a cakewalk. The schedule, you're only going to be wrestling once a week. That's nowhere near of like what you'll be doing if you want to really be a top guy in New Japan. I don't know. Like, I think right now he has like that spoiled brat persona. And it might not be purposeful, but like that's what people think of him as. And I don't know. I don't know what you do with him. I genuinely don't know.
You know who could help him in AEW?
Yeah.
There's one man that you can never count out.
Jeff Jarrett.
No,
Chris Jericho.
It's Chris Jericho. if you want to pair him with somebody that will find a gimmick that will get him reinvigorated and get him over, especially since he's not staying on the roster and he can get him over and then send his ass back to Japan, it's Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho will find something that will get this guy over with the crowd again and then send him back to Japan. Like, that's what you do. If you want to like save his career, you send him to you send him under the learning tree is what you do there.
I can't imagine what his nickname would be. Like, you know, like Brian keeps Bad Apple, and
we have no clue, but Chris already knows. Chris has thought about this.
He's just waiting for the call.
One last thing I want to say about this match. I know we haven't kicked it to Jeremy. I'm sorry, but just one last thing. They did the spot again where the person's arms are trapped behind them and the person is in the full mount on their back and they're elbowing them in the back of the head. And then the referee's trying to pull them away to check on the person. Bro, I'm sorry. If you got to pull the person off of them to check on their prone body, stop the fucking match. It's over. That's it. You don't need to. I know that this isn't MMA, and I know like we could easily deconstruct wrestling. If you go down that hill of like non-believability, eventually none of it really works, but there has to be a delineation line between some established rules that have to like maintain so that you can like keep your believability, and like someone just endlessly pounding the back of a prone person's head. They're not protecting themselves. They're not moving and they're dead. Stop the match. There's no reason to pull them off. It's over. That's it. You don't need to do a 10 count, you know. We're gonna talk about 10 counts later, but like it's over.
Yeah, stop it. He's already dead.
They did that in the tag match this weekend in Australia when when fucking Will is laying on Kenny's body to protect him. If you got to lay on your partner's body to protect them, the match is over.
Oh man. But yeah, I totally agree with you guys on this match. You know, this was more about the story after the match. You know, Ocon, he hits the flatliner, gets to win with the Eliminator Claw Slam on Umino. And I thought, in a way, it was kind of a bold decision here because I feel like a lot of people were just expecting Umino to kind of be the John Cena and just overcome and get the win and kind of this force bayface push. But, you know, they made a call there in Osaka where he first got booed to have him lose. And throughout the whole match, he was getting booed And then he loses, and then the big post-match angle I guys mentioned, O'Connell was coming in with the razors, he grabbed it, shaved his own head, and the crowd did kind of like ooh and ah, and there was starting to be some Umino chant. So I feel like they did kind of get the desired reaction of people starting to get some sympathy for him. Like, they were booing him the whole match. They're like, oh man, like this guy is shaving his own head. So I'm wondering,
are we going to get canceled if we say it sounded like women and children that were cheering for Umino in that moment?
Yeah, it was, and I think we should say it. I think we need to be honest about it. I think that it is a lot of it is sympathy, and I say this as I think so many people genuinely want to like him. So many of us genuinely want to like him because, and it goes back to that point of we invested so much in him, of our emotions. We watched his journey from top to bottom. And I think to watch his journey and to see it go up and then go down before he even accomplished really anything, but him to claim so much before really accomplishing anything. Right. I think a lot of, and I'm not even sure if it was all sympathy. I think a lot of it is just wanting to see something of, I said this on my own podcast, but I feel like New Japan has been trying to do reverse psychology with a lot of the Musketeers since they came back from excursion, even when they did the original announcement, right, of the Musketeers, it's trying to light this fire under them, trying to light them competition between them, and even with the Tokyo Dome main event of I think they tried to use reverse psychology of he has to show up in the Tokyo Dome, right? He has to do something in the Tokyo Dome.
I think that's called gaslighting.
It's just not working out. And I think it's just not working out. And I don't know. I think he has to be considerably willing to humble himself. And I think that shaving his head in public was a really good start to that. I think it doesn't get much more, humbling than that. But I think that this just is a start. And I honestly think he needs to lose some more. I really do. I think he shouldn't be winning another match for a very
for a year.
Yeah, he needs to lose a lot.
And then next year comes out for the Rambo. We're all thinking all right, this is his time. It's been a year. He's gonna come back and win the Rambo. Set himself up for February. First one out. Lose. Done.
First one out is crazy.
After that, puts back on the black trunks. You know what I'm saying?
I was thinking he put them on right now and start running to the ring again.
You know what though? I wouldn't
start running to the ring.
I wouldn't mind that as a gimmick. Hell, if Go Shiozaki over at Noah can do a young boy gimmick and go back to the black trunks and back to the basics to try to, after all that he's accomplished, I'm sorry, Shota Umino can take off those hideous pants and put those black trunks and boots back on and start from scratch.
When you said you had a fully pink room, I was like, she had a Shota Umino room is what she had.
And did you see it? You also heard the part about I couldn't stand it and I covered it all up. I can't believe somebody would do that on purpose.
I think part of what happened is Shota Umino basically experienced Barbenheimer. He watched Oppenheimer, he watched Barbie, and then he was like, this could be my aesthetic for fucking wrestling. Didn't work out.
You know what? But then he dropped the black jacket. I mean, at least used to have the Death Riders jacket to kind of balance it out. I mean, you're giving the girls full pink. Here's the thing. I think we need to bring more pink in wrestling. I like pink. I just think it should look good. And I think that's the thing of, if you're going to bite off of Naito and if you're going to bite off of Tanahashi, these are very stylish people, these are very stylish people. I'm all for cosplay. It just has to be good.
Yeah, and I felt his original gear when he first came back
was great.
And it had the pink. He had the ties. He looked like a superstar when he first came back.
We're spending so much time on Shota Umino. This man does not deserve all this time, but he's getting it because people want to hear it.
I think that's also one of the biggest stories in New Japan right now, though. I think in New Japan circles of so much time was spent on Shota Umino, so we can't just sit here and act like, oh my gosh, well, he's donezo, because clearly he's not if he's still behind time. But at the same time, there's so many more interesting people, and it's like, how much longer can we justify and validate spending this much time on like a Shota Umino? And I said that honestly, and this is a route, and it will require some significant humbling. I think that he should try his hand at some domestic excursion. I think that the best success story that they have right now is Oiwa, and I think it's because he went to Noah. And I'm not saying that Noah specifically is for everybody, and I'm sure, like, especially with the WWE relationship now, there's a lot of red tape and stuff, but he needs to find a way how to learn how to connect specifically with Japanese audiences, and he needs to be in a place where, I'm gonna be honest, where they don't have a soft spot for him.
So you want him to go to DDT is what you want him to do.
No, I don't think he might come back goofier than he already is. No.
You got three choices. He can go to DDT and he can be goofy. He can go to Glate and he can work some shoot style, get his head bust.
Oh God. Akajima will kill him.
Or he can go to Big Japan and work some death matches and start working with some death glass. Like, those are his three choices. That's it. Like, there's nothing else.
I fuck with that. I'm not gonna lie. That last one, hey, I like it. I'm partial to All Japan. That's probably like my comfort promotion.
Too prestigious for him. He can't do that.
Damn.
You assume that they're gonna work with Yuma Anzai. Come on,
I will say he would get. I think that's also the thing about the young guys right now in All Japan. They'll lap him too. Of just Yuma Yagi and Yuma Anzai, I can say with full confidence are significantly better than Shota Umino right now in Big 2025. Big Japan though, hey, I rock with it. I think, you know what, he never really showed us what that roughneck name, living up to it, that shooter style. Like, that's actually good. Or even if you're not doing a full tour, do some freedom shows or something. Like,
link with Jun Kasai.
Yeah, like, do something else. Like, do something out of the box. I think, like, right now we're just but like more so specifically, he is waiting. Okay, New Japan, what are we gonna do about this problem? Like, take some outside bookings. Like, be aggressive. Like, do something else.
The chocolate bat.
Yeah.
Put him in Choco Pro.
Yeah.
Let him see what he can do with what's the guy's name? Ali Balyan. They'll figure something out.
Listen, send him to Surrealism. She'll put him in shape. She will put him in shape.
Here's something that a lot of fans that are like modern New Japan fans, they've lived through probably, I would say, like the last decade of Japanese pro wrestling. But there's some of us that have been watching longer than that, and there is this aspect that you sort of have to embrace when it comes to the line system, that not everybody you attach yourself to is gonna fucking make it, or if they do, they're gonna have to find a niche that is far removed from where maybe you thought the company could project them to be. And I've lived through that. We've seen the Kenzo Suzuki's and guys like that you thought were gonna be the ace of this company, and it doesn't work out, and they're not around, and they leave, and then stuff like that happens. And it's part of the reason why the system is so strong, because for every success story there are those failures, and you kind of have to embrace that aspect of it, because not everybody can be the ace. Like, there's only so many guys that can be in the top 4, top 5, and I'm saying right now, I don't think Shota Umino is going to be one of those guys. I used to think he was going to be ace, but I don't think he is anymore.
Yeah, and like we said, he's been getting lapped, and we'll talk about two guys later on this show who are showing more ace status than he is. I think he'll find a spot. I kind of like that idea of him like being the deathmatch guy. Like, we've seen people throughout the years who like weren't as talented as you thought they were, so they gimmick it up, and that becomes like their whole entire avenue. Like, why not? Why can't he be Sandman?
Be the roughneck.
Why can't he be the roughneck, the fucking Sandman? Or what's wrong with me? Who's the dude from FMW? The Onita. Why can't he be the Onita of New Japan? Like, let's do that.
Listen, Onita is Mox's greatest influence. So like that, I mean, it makes perfect sense. I think also too, like when it comes to Shota at this point of like you said, every young lion doesn't work out. The thing is, New Japan is in a better position than just about every other Japanese promotions because they bring in several guys. When you look at like All Japan or like Noah, sometimes they can only get like one good recruit at a time.
Right.
Like, if that guy's wrong, you're done. Like you're cooked like for like a whole cycle. And so like they are at this point, I think this time last year, especially after Okada left, I felt like everybody was panicking because it's like, we don't have talent. Who's going to step up? Who's going to step up? But I don't think that. Obviously, there's still a sense of urgency, but I think like the conversation has changed significantly this year to where it's like, oh, we do have talent now. It's just like, who's going to do what? Like, I think it's completely different now. And there are several people who can take that space. I think like even for people who haven't been watching Japanese wrestling for a long time, just take a look at AEW, right? Of just the company's now been around 6 years. There's a lot of people who were stars in 2019 that in 2025, they're not cutting it. Like, I think of a certain dentist, right? Like, you think to be like
a tooth merchant.
Exactly. Like, in 2019, you're like, oh, this is the future face of the women's division and they're going to carry this for a long time. And that's just not the case 5 years later. And, like it happens. It's just one of those things. But
where's Joey Janela?
I think at that point,
Marco Stunt.
We're at that point to where I think Shota has like one more try left. Before I don't think New Japan can really justify consistently investing in this guy to be a top guy. Like you just got to let him be Toru Yano and just go on. And I feel like that's disrespectful to Toru Yano. And I
think the word you were looking for was Yujiro.
Yes. That was disrespectful to Toru Yano. I'm sorry, Toru Yano.
We did have a question
funny.
here from Def Wrangle 720. It says, with Shota's hit to rock bottom after losing to Ocon and cutting his hair, do you think the company could pull same tactic as the Sonata run from 2023 in the New Japan Cup?
It's too soon for that.
I'm sorry. They want him to
win? That's too soon. You know what, though? You know what, Lyric? In our Discord, we might, I don't know. I don't want to disrespect the people in our Discord, but we have some freaks that like think he's winning. Like I've seen the conversations. There's a groundswell. There's a lot of people that think that's happening. I personally don't, but yeah, like that's a conversation.
I will say, when you look at the New Japan Cup bracket, the right side is particularly weak compared to the left. To the point to where I could see a scenario where he goes to the final. I don't think he wins though. And I don't think he should win. I think like at the same time of New Japan, if you're trending upwards, it's kind of like almost kind of like the AEW Death Riders thing in a way of just like if fans are really rocking with what you're doing right now and things are going in the right direction, why would you take that risk right now to do something that you know that nobody's asking for? Like why would you do that? Especially when you have like even on that New Japan Cup bracket, there's at least 4 guys who right now make a lot of sense. Like I think that could really get it. Most of them are young, hungry, lots of potential. Why would you do that for somebody who's not even over? Like, you told the young, and I think that is disrespectful, right? Honestly, because you told the young generation to step up. You told them that, hey, I need you to start doing more. I need you to take the throne, all this. And you have guys who have been doing that. And to consistently give opportunities to the one who has not done any of that is fucking crazy.
The U in Sakura Genesis does not stand for Umino. You know what I'm saying? And you brought up a funny point. Like, if you're one of those next generation guys, like a Gabe Kidd or
Tsuji, Uemura,
any of those guys. If you were watching the main event of the Tokyo Dome, like you were sitting there, like covering your face, like in awe, like in shock, but deep down you were smiling because you're like, this is just this is an obstacle that is gonna get out of my way, and then you're like, this is terrible. It's just terrible. But deep down, you're like, fuck yeah, this is exactly what I wanted to happen. This man to fucking fail so I can, lap him.
I think the opposite, though. I don't know if you saw, but Yota Tsuji's VTR before the Gabe Kidd match. And he says like of how his generation has been seen as next up for so long. And he said that Shota is the only thing that's keeping them from becoming the now, because the next generation can never truly move on until they pull Shota up with them. And then just because of the company is not going to formally accept basically the generation shift until he is pulled up too. And I think that that's real. When you see of how hard that they fought for him, they gave him the Tokyo Dome main event anyway. Like when you see that, I think that there's some validity to it. It doesn't matter how good everybody else is doing and how great, that they're performing. If the company is still so invested in trying to make Shota Umino happen, then what's the point of the rest of it? It's only but so far, that they can collectively go. It doesn't matter how great Tsuji and Gabe are doing and how great Oyo's looked and how good Yuya's doing, because the one who had the most anticipation out of all of them was Shota. And the biggest shitter out of all of them is Shota. But the one who the company is most invested in, unfortunately, is Shota.